Good voch, Rabbi Isai, Leilui nishmas imi merasi, Rosmas Mordechai. Today's share is being sponsored by Tomer, Dina, Levy. Again, let's do this again. Sorry. Today's share is being sponsored by Tomer and Dina Levy. Leilui nishmat, Dina's father, Reb Dov ben Leipa of Shalom on his 35th Yahrzeit on Shabbos. Shalom should have an aliyah. Lauren Spiegelman, I see you on Zoom, so we'll read your email. The story about the chassan who bought the 90% used tube of toothpaste is a proof of a discussion. I don't want to say argument. I have with my wife every year about the minhag some people have not to sell open packages of chametz before Pesach. The Kitzer's wife doesn't like to do so. She says it's a harama. Listen, at the end of the day, if a guy buys, she says it's a mockery of the whole mechira. But listen, here's a guy that bought a tiny little bit of, well, there was a pshat. Somebody said pshat because it's American. Okay, it was in today, in this week's, wasn't it in the Ara Merkaz, that pshat? Okay, bottom line, now I can tell if somebody's willing to buy your toothpaste, and for sure someone will buy half a box of Cheerios. Bli neder, I'll let you know how it goes this year, if you make it. Yeshakayach Lauren Spiegelman. Here's another guy that's on Zoom right now from England, all the way from England. Menachem Atel was worried that 8:15 is not late enough for the English people. It's too early. Okay. Too late. If it's so late, so why were you here late? I'm sitting here for 10 minutes. All right. No shaykhs. Okay. Yossi Schloss. You're right, I am. But I want to be good. I want to come on time. I came on time this week. Not a single person is. So that's it. Next week I'm not going on time. Okay. Rebelli, I may have missed Zoom all week due to COVID messing up with my sleep schedule, but I won't dare miss your daf share, as my day is not a day without it. Oy dieshu all day long, ringing in my head. It's beautiful, beautiful. It's ringing in my head too. Not the way I sang it, a different way. It was Givaldi that you messed up with the high part. It made share so much more exciting. You do have a star quality voice. I'll be back. If that's star quality, can you imagine if I didn't mess up? I'll be back on Zoom very soon. Amir Hashem. Okay, here he is. He's on. May we keep well, warmest. Yossi, Givaldik. Listen, we're already 60, what? Almost 70 daf into Pesachim. He's there every single day. Rabbi say, here. I want to show you what MDY is all about. Here's a guy with a colored shirt learning the daf. This is the way it's supposed to be. With the video, with the Gemara, with the article on the plane. Yosef Goldberg. Rebelli, thank you for your amazing shir and all you put into it. On my recent flight to Boca Raton, I downloaded the daf from YouTube and was Baruch Hashem able to learn on the flight. See attached, JetBlue. Here he is. Now, there's a big taiva Yitzhar. It's right in front of you. The thing, okay, so you have to pay a couple bucks, but it's geschmack. You can watch sports all flight long. Instead, learning Torah. That's one. Now look at this. That's the guy. Here's the chassid. Learning with his kid, learning the daf. What does he write? Hey Rebelli, since it became a tradition to learn Daf Yomi on a flight, I decided to book a flight, so I'll have the Zchus of learning on the flight with sending a picture. But since flying with children is a nightmare, my little terrorist, who was just pulling all my hair out and pulling the Gemara. What happened?
You froze. Also, were you on your screen?
No.
Good.
Okay. So something's wrong with the internet here again. My little terrorist. You say terrorist about a little Hasidic redhead kid, that's a problem. Freezes the screen. The person next to me looked at me with big eyes, like, what am I trying to do here? Just give him a card of the MDY and everything will be clear for him. Anyways, maybe by zooming in 3 to 4 times on maps every 30 seconds will make the flight faster. For now, I think I'll have to get to the pirate 11 p.m. in Florida. Cash the daf then. Thanks to spell check. I hope it was written clear. He's a Cheder graduate. I don't want to make you more backed up, so never mind. All the best. Guess from who? Yossi Klein. It's all about... Do we have time for another one? It's already 8:30. What time do we start?
The Meister share ends at 9:15.
You know what? If I don't read this now, I'll never read this one. This is from Yomi Pesachim. He says that he grew up knowing the Gordons. He went to Gordon. I'll just skip the whole email all the way to the end. The sponsorships mean so much to him, and he's extremely, second extremely is not a typo, thankful, grateful, appreciative, and the outpouring of support was just a shloshim the other day. The shir was very helpful and a huge chizuk for him during the hospital stays as well as during the shiva, even though he wasn't allowed to learn. You should definitely continue the pre-shir announcements and most definitely keep posting the sponsorship signs no matter how commercialized some people think they may be. There's much more to be gained than could possibly be lost by the commercialization. Keep it up. You never know what effect the shir and all that comes along with it has the Olam HaTorah and beyond, has on the Olam HaTorah and beyond. Tiskul mitzvahs, bracha atzlacha, kol tuv, b'yom l'pidus. All right. We got to do this one real quick. It's not an email. This is Reb Pesach Waxman at the bar mitzvah of his grandson. Look in the background. You remember these American Kaddish shuls with the things on the top? Lewis and Lane Kent Laser Social Hall. Anyways, Mazel Tov to Reb Pesach. He also had a chasana, or an engagement or something recently. Yesterday I was also flogging. I missed like a lot of stuff I wanted to tell the Olam, including the riddle. I said, not the riddle, Shaila. Who is it that has a bris milah becomes tummy? And if so, how many days? You know what the answer is? We learned it was yesterday in Rashi, and that is a ger. A ger becomes tummy for 7 days. Amazing. All right. So Rabbi Yisai, I was busy today asking people, including Talmidei Chachamim, people, big learners, the following questions, and I think that it's very important to know these things. Mashiach is coming. We don't want to be Amaritza when he shows up. Right? Question number one is, when Mashiach comes and we bring a korban Pesach, everybody knows about a korban Pesach. What else do we have to be concerned about in terms of korbanos? What else? That's it? You just bring a korban Pesach, Shalom Yisroel? And I don't want anybody to get ripped off here. There's going to be people selling korbanos outside the Beis Hamikdash, and they're going to tell you need 2, you need 3, maybe you're getting ripped off. How many korbanos? Rabbi, does anybody know? You know what the answer is? It's crazy. People didn't know. People were chatas, asham. No. Here's a list. This is what you're going to have to bring. It's not just a korban Pesach. You have to bring oilas riyah. You have to bring oilah every single time you go to Beis Hamikdash on Yontif. You're going to have to bring a chagiga, chiyuv. To bring a chagiga, your own. You can't be part of a group. Your own chagiga. Your kid has to bring a chagiga. Your little kid, chinuch, chagiga. We're going to learn today about chagiga that you bring on the 15th, chagiga that you bring on the 14th. The one that you bring on the 15th is a chiyuv. The one on the 14th, you might not have to bring if there's enough meat on the Pesach. But if there's not enough meat on the korban Pesach, you must bring a chagiga. Now there's another one called shalmei simcha, and that is that you must eat a korban every day of Yontif. Every day you have to eat from the korbanos. Now, if you have leftover, great. But if you don't have leftover, you have to bring your own shalmei simcha. So just be aware, it's not cheap. These animals cost money. You got to bring maybe 5 korbanos. Unbelievable. Now, here's one last question. This is more of an interesting question. And that is, I saw somebody discuss, I'll tell you later on which sefer. We know a ben pekua. You shecht an animal, a mother. Inside there's a baby. You don't have to shecht the baby. Eat it as is without a shechita. Can you eat the baby for the korban Pesach? You shecht the mother, you bring the Beis Hamikdash for the Pesach, korban Pesach. You shecht the mother for korban Pesach, and then there's a little baby in there. Could you enjoy the baby as korban Pesach? Anybody? What are you tying up? So it's a trick question. You know why it's a trick question? Because a korban Pesach cannot be a nekeva. Korban Pesach is a zachar. So that's another thing you got to be careful of when you go to the Beis Hamikdash to buy korbanos. Just be careful that they sell you a zachar. Okay. With those things, a zachar doesn't. He's usually not pregnant. No. You're saying, that you shechted. Yeah, that's a different shaila. I hear what you're saying. You said outside, nothing to do with the korban Pesach. You shechted a thing and you bring it in. So that's a shaila in every korban. Could you bring a ben pekua as a korban? It doesn't need to be shechted. Okay. Says the Mishnah. We're not holding by the Mishnah yet. Klall Omer Rebbe Akiva. By the first wide line on Daf Samach Tes, Amud Beis. Klall Omer Rebbe Akiva, we apologize, some technical difficulties. Omer Rav Yud Omer Rav. Halacha ki Rebbe Akiva. Okay, you reset the camera so now it's sharper. Okay, thank you, Gary. So Rebbe Akiva said a klal that anything that you could do before schlepping the animal, Erev Pesach, that fell on Shabbos, schlepping the animal to Beis Hamikdash, whatever it is, all these things, taking off the wart, do it before, you're not allowed to be doicha Shabbos. Shechting, the korban Pesach, you can't do it before the 14th, you can only do it on the 14th, if it falls on Shabbos, you push off Shabbos. Rav Yud Omer Rav says Rav, halacha ki Rebbe Akiva. That's how we pass it. Same thing we learned by Mila. In Masechta Shabbos, right? Paragraph Eliezer over there. Klall, if you could bring the knife for the Mila before Shabbos, do so. And the Doich is Shabbos. You're not going to carry it on Shabbos, says Rabbi Akiva. Mila, right? So that's how the Moelim do today. They bring all the knives beforehand. Mila, Sheyev Shel HaSoisim of Shabbos. Doich is Shabbos. The actual cutting, the incision, the Mila, can't do it on Friday. The kid was born 7 days before Friday. He has to be on the 8th. Doich is Shabbos. Over there, the same exact thing. Rav comes along. Halach is like Rabbi Akiva. Utzricha. Says Gemara, very simple. Tzrichusa, all the way to the Mishnah. If we just said halach is like Rabbi Akiva by Pesach, chasam mitzvah leidach Shabbos, mishum deleichizu aleh shalish eser brisois. The Torah by bris milah says 13 times the word bris by milah, by Avram Avinu. So it's very, very chamor. Aval milah deleichizu shalish brisois ema litchi. It should push off Shabbos. V'yashmin but not Pesach. V'yashmin milah hasam l'machshir mitzvah leidach Shabbos deleka kares. Mila doesn't have cars. Ooh, so Rashi right away, Barvarans. What do you mean, Mila? Mila does have cars. That day. If you push it off one day, who are you going to give cars to? The baby doesn't get cars, obviously. The father will do it the next day. He doesn't get cars. There's a big shiloh. Machlokes Rishonim, the Rambam says you only get cars. I believe it's the Rambam who says you get cars when the person dies. Then it's nizgala that he didn't do a bris milah, and the Ravid says it's every day, every minute or something, he's chayav kares. But if you get a bris milah, then it retroactively removes all the kares. Pesach dika kares, emelitchi, tzricha Leipa, you're in charge. If I miss a word or something, let me know. Pesach dika kares, emelitchi. Pesach does have kares. Right now, today, if you don't bring the korban Pesach, you get kares. Emelitchi, I would think you do. Maybe even Rabbi Akiva agrees that you do. Tzricha. Says the Mishnah, a mosai maybe chagigo imoy. So, going back to the list, remember this list. It's coming up soon. We're going to have to buy all these korbanos. Reuven Shea told me there's going to be like one of these organizations. You just put in a few dollars every month, and they get the carbon for you. That's how it's good. He says, what do you think? You're going to schlep 5 korbanos? It's not how it works. It's like a manui in Israel. You get a Gemara Masifta to your mail, in the mail. So too, the korbanos, there's going to be people in charge. That you have to speak to Mendy Orbach. He's in charge of the Beis Hamikdash. Fine. So Pesach, Oylas Riyah, we're holding over here. Chagiga on the 14th and on the 15th. 2 different chagigas. So this one over here on the 15th we said is a chiyuv. Everybody has the chiyuv. You can't be part of somebody else's chagiga. You have to bring the chiyuv. The 14th, as we're going to see, is a chiyuv to make sure that you eat korban Pesach when you are full. So how do you do it? You have to fill yourself up with a korban chagiga. There's conditions. When do you do it? Only chagiga only comes in the weekday. It doesn't push off Shabbos. B'tahara and Klall Yisrael's tar ubemuat, and you don't have enough korban Pesach. There's very little korban Pesach. There's a lot of people on one korban Pesach. You're left with very little. You have to eat the korban Pesach b'soiva when you're full, almost full. It's very tricky. You have to feel satiated, but not. You can't just stuff yourself with it. You have to be all the way there. You're almost there, and the korban Pesach tops it off. Okay. But if the 14th of Nisan, when you bring your korban Pesach, is on Shabbos, so you don't bring a chagiga. Ubimeruba, you have plenty of korban Pesach, you don't bring a chagiga. Ubituma, you're in Tuma, you don't bring a chagiga. Ein meviim imoy chagiga. Chagiga is a ba min atzoy min abakar. Here's the picture. Let me see if I thought I printed that one. I guess I didn't. Okay, there's a nice picture of a korban chagiga on the Seder table. Here's the picture. This is what it looks like. This is a para, this is a shard, this is just, I don't know if a lot of people know, but when I was busy with shechita, once upon a time I had a little bit of a business, I learned that in our days they don't really shecht cows. What we eat are not cows, it's rather these guys, the bulls. Cows are for milk, and the meat is not very good. Okay, I don't know if a lot of people know that. Everybody says, oh, you eat a cow. No, you eat a bull. Fine. Chagiga could come from a para, a shar, a ayil, a male sheep, a kivsa, a female sheep, tle are the babies, a taish is a male goat, aiz, female goat, and a gdi is a baby goat. Okay. It could also be a female. So, here's the chart. When you shecht an animal, you get to eat it that day, one day, the night afterwards, and the following day. 2 days and a night. All right? There might have been some confusion. So we'll make a simple chart for it. That's the chagiga can be eaten for 2 days and a night. What about the Korban Pesach that we said? You can only eat it, you can't even eat it on the Yom. You shecht it over here, you can't eat it here. You can only eat it Leila Seder and the night. Until what point of the night? We'll see. Machlokes maybe until Chatzos. We're makbid until Chatzos. Afikoyim maybe before Chatzos. Okay, Machlokes will actually touch upon it today. Just the night for the Korban Pesach. But Shlamim, the easier, the lighter kind of korbanos you typically get 2 days and a night. Says the Gemara, what's going on here? We're middle of the 6th parak, talking about Korban Pesach. Suddenly, a Masai Mevi Chagiga. Where does this fit into everything? My Tana, the Ktani Chagiga. What did you mention that triggered this Mishnah? Says the Gemara, Tana Arkavasi Vavasa Deloich Shabbos. We're discussing carrying an animal to the Pesach, to the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos. It doesn't push off Shabbos. You're talking about things that don't push off Shabbos. I'm talking about Chagiga. Chagiga doesn't push off Shabbos. Which Chagiga? The Chagiga that you're just bringing to fill yourself up, not your chi of the Eiraisa of bringing a Chagiga on Yantiv. The Chagiga of the 14th. There's 2 types. The 14th is not Doiche Shabbos. This is what the Mishnah means to say. When do you bring the Chagiga together with the Korban Pesach? When you have these 3 conditions. On a weekday, b'tahara, u'b'muat, when you don't have enough to eat, and you tar, and it's a weekday. Omer Bashi, Shmamina, Chagiga Sarbas are top of Ayin Amud Aleph. Unbelievable number, 70. We're not there yet, 69 daf into the Masechta. Lav Choyvahi. See from here, it's obvious that you're not mechuyev to bring a chagiga. These so kedai the choyvahi teisi b'Shabbos, v'teisi b'Meruba, v'teisi b'Tuma. If you have a chiv deraisa, then Tuma doesn't push it off. The amount of Korban Pesach that you have doesn't push it off, and Shabbos doesn't push it off. Nothing pushes it off. It's a chiv deraisa. Ubemiut miu my time I ask you. Why do you have to bring a Korban Chagiga when you don't have enough to eat? So this is the famous concept. You must eat the Korban Pesach when you are satiated, you're full. Then only you eat the Korban Pesach. But you can't be stuffed. You have to be kind of full. And that you're 95% full. The Korban Pesach fills you up to 100%, but not 110%. Now, why? So Tosfos points out here that there's an inyan of shbiras etzem. I'm concerned that you might break a bone. If you're so hungry, you're going to come and you're going to chip away at a bone. So make sure that you don't eat when you are starving. Rashi seems to learn a little differently. The fact that you could eat the Korban Chagiga 2 days is not like Ben Teima. The Sanya Ben Teima Omer. Chagiga Aboim Pesach Harei Pesach. So we're going to see Ben Teima says to almost every halacha, all the interesting halachas that apply to a Korban Pesach, and that's this Amud right now. Different halachas. We just mentioned one. Can't break a bone of a Korban Pesach. Mefurish or pasuk. Does that apply to Chagiga? Ben Teima seems to say that almost everything applies to a Chagiga. Every halacha. So you have to eat a Korban Pesach only at night, the night after you shecht it. So Chagiga also. All these halachas, we're going to go one by one and see what he agrees to, what not. It's exactly like a Korban Pesach. Now, it's not exact, because I pointed out that a Korban Pesach is not eaten Yom v'Layla. It's eaten Laila. It's a very special Korban. Only Laila. There's no other Korban like that, really. Right? Achatas, you can eat it the day that you shecht it, and the night. You get a white box and a black box. Not a Korban Pesach. Pesach, you get only night. Okay. So to a Chagiga, only a night. However, the second Chagiga, there's the green Chagiga, Yudalid, and then you have the purple Chagiga, the Tezvav. That's already a Chayva, but that's already like any other carbon. Nothing, it's not related to Korban Pesach. I'm not bringing it for the Korban Pesach to eat it b'soiva. Wow. Shpliya and Hara, 125 people on a Motzei Shabbos on Zoom. I don't know, on YouTube. On Zoom, unbelievable. V'chagigas 5 hours nechels shne yom v'layla echad. V'chagigas 14 yoytze ba mishum simcha. Now, you have here on the bottom Shalmi Simcha. Every day of Yom Tov, you have to taste from a carbon. I don't care how, where. Says the Gemara, the Chagiga of the 14th, you eat it and you're yoytze this mitzvah of Shalmi Simcha. You have a chuyev to bring a carbon Simcha, Shalmi Simcha. You have something laying around, great. If you don't, today, what's going on? What do you have for breakfast? I don't know. Do you have any carbon left over? No. Go to the Beis HaMikdash, bring a carbon. You are mechuyev to bring a carbon. Now, if you have leftover chagiga, gesundheit, you can eat your chagiga. Yoytze mishum simcha. Ve'yoytze ba mishum chagiga. But this one right over here, that you need to bring a chagiga, the purple, tesvav, you can't double dip. Shalmei simcha, chagiga is chagiga. Now, if I want to use the chagiga of the 14th for my blue, good. But I can't use my chagiga of the 14th instead of the chagiga of the 15th. Chagiga of the 15th is a din by itself. So basically, what we're going to come out. So to answer the question, how many korbanos are you mechuyev to bring? Mechuyev to bring 3. Korban Pesach, chagiga of the 15th, and oilas riyah. That you can't get away with. That you can't be your brother's partner and your father's partner. You have to bring your own oilas chagiga, oilas riyah, your own chagiga, and Pesach you could be part of a chabura. The master Rav Lechia Brei, the famous Chia, the son of Rav. Remember, we had Rav Yehuda used to teach him. My time of the Bentema. Thank you, Levy. The master Rav Lechia Brei. What's the svara here? V'lo yolin laboiker zevach chag habosach. Zevach chag. I know the Gemara brings it, but it's kedai to see this because in a second we're not going to have the pasuk in front of us. The pasuk says, "L'sishcha da'chomes dam zivchi v'lo yolin laboiker lino zevach chag habosach." We would read it not like this, but the Gemara tells us zevach chag habosach, 2 separate things. Zevach chag, this is chagiga. The red is chagiga. The green is Korban Pesach. 2 separate things. So now we have Gzeirah Shava. They're both in the same pasuk, right next to each other, so we learn one from the other. Zevach Chag Zechagiga HaPesach K'mashmoy, it's a Korban Pesach. V'omer Rachmana Lo Yolin. Here, Lo Yolin. There's an Isser Lino, there's an Isser to leave it over. So don't tell me that you get the following day like a regular Korban Shlomim, Chagiga, you get 2 days and a night. No, it's like a Korban Pesach. Ask the Gemara. Very simple shilas now. Ibarlu, Liben Tema, Necheles Tzoli, or Yen Necheles Tzoli. We know Korban Pesach, you have to roast it. You're telling me that this Chagiga, the 14th one, not the 15th, the 14th Chagiga is identical to Korban Pesach. Do you have to roast it like a Korban Pesach? What's the shayla? There's a hekesh. It says in the pasuk, they're both together. This is equal to this. Chagiga is a Pesach, so you have to do roasting. No. I only maybe are makashit to this word right over Loyolin. You can't leave it overnight. Not to every single halacha. Or dilma loishna, maybe there's a hekesh to every single halacha. Toshma halaylo hazeh kuloi tzoli. Yeah, what it sounds familiar. Manashtana. Halaylo hazeh. So if you look, there's a Mishnah much later on, very close to Pesach. In fact, the Mishnah says one of the 4 kashas of Manashtana is Halayla Zeh Kuloi Tzali. Now that doesn't go according to everybody. That goes according to Ben Temu, who says everything must be because I have a hekesh between the Chagiga and Korban Pesach. So just like the Korban Pesach Tzali is roasted, so too the Chagiga is roasted. V'omer Rav Chizda, whose Manashtana is that? Zudivri Ben Temu. That's only according to Ben Temu. Shma Mina. So Ben Temu is the one who actually says, yeah, you're right. The Chagiga needs roasting. You ask me, does Chagiga need? Yes. It's equal to Korban Pesach, even in roasting. Okay, let's go to the next halacha. You just told me that the chagiga of the 15th is eaten for 2 days and a night, and it comes from all these animals. It comes from cows and bulls. And by the way, when we buy meat in the store, it's usually not the cow, it's a bull. Okay, so that, could you bring I'm just seeing if you're paying attention. Could you bring a chagiga from this? Says the Gemara. Could you bring in a keva? We know a korban pesach can only be a year old, but other korbanos 2 years. Maybe this whole hekesh right over there, he's talking about edible stuff, things that have to do with eating. Not for everything, not what type of animal. Not maybe I could bring a bull. Or maybe I make a hekesh for everything. Tashma, for that I need a raya. This chagiga that comes with the korban pesach, in other words, chagiga the 14th, chagigas arbasar, haba ma pesach, harei pesach. It's identical to the korban pesach. Ba min atzoin, ve'ena ba min abakar. It says mafurish. It does not come from cows. Ba min azchar ve'ena ba min kais. It comes exactly like a zachar, like the korban pesach zachar, not in keva. Ba bashnasa has to be a year old. Ve'ena ba bashtei shanim. Ve'ena nechel zaliyim v'layla. And in addition to that, it's only eaten exactly like a korban pesach, only at night. Only roasted. Here's another halacha that sticks in here, under its breath. You have to be part of the group. This last svara. Who's the one that says chagiga is only yom v'layla, only that night? Ben tema. It must be ben tema. So Shema Mina, so the whole thing is ben tema. Shema Mina, kula bilzabinun. You need every single halacha that a korban pesach has. So too the chagiga of the arbasar. You only need it one night. It only could be a zachar, a year old, tzali, everything, minuyav, everything. Shema Mina, ibaylu. One more. So this one is a little longer than the rest. Not as simple. Ibaylu. Leben teima yesh bam shum shviras etzem. Can you break a bone of the chagiga? So, here's the pasuk. Doesn't get any clearer than this. Cannot break a bone of a korban pesach. Got to be careful. Rabbi say, practice. It's coming up. Less than 2 months. Cannot break the korban pesach's bone. So this korban chagiga, I have to be super careful not break a bone. Yeah, well, you're going to say, well, there's a hekesh, and every halacha that the korban pesach has, the chagiga has. So this is why I printed it out. Oh, no, I didn't. That's not why. Okay? Oh, yeah, I did. Here, this one. Right over here. Boy is very, very exclusive to the korban pesach. What does boy mean? In it, the korban, and not a chagiga. Boy, because maybe there's something else. We're talking about a kosher pesach, not a puzzle pesach, but nothing to do, not to exclude a chagiga. Tashma. So here's the interesting halacha. Sakin shenimtzes bar ba'asar shoichet b'miyad. We're talking about people that know halachas, and everything is with the cheshbon. Very interesting. It reminds me almost like a riddle. Some of these riddles, like you walk into a place, and the only way to get out of the place is you could realize what color hat you have, and everybody in front of you, this guy's a black hat, there's a white hat, so you start making cheshbon. If that guy had a white hat, then he would realize that I have a black hat, and maybe he has a white hat, and maybe he would leave. But because, so you have to assume that the other guy has a little seichel. So this also. You find a knife. Okay, we're talking about a knife, no simon, brand new knife. What is it called? That Swiss knife. Everybody here in Israel has a Victorinox. There you go. Victorinox knife. Brand new, mamish, sparkling new. There's no simon. There's millions of people from Klall Yisrael walking you don't give it back. Fine. So, you found it on the 14th. Question. Is it tameh? Is it not tameh? Can I use it? Can I not use it? Did the guy put it in the mikvah? Did not put it in the mikvah? That's the whole question. So if you find out on the 14th, I can use it for shchita immediately. I could assume that this is tavel. Now, obviously it just dropped from a guy, because if it dropped 10 minutes ago, somebody would have picked it up and ran away with it. So it just dropped. So it was ready to go, ready for the shchita. I could use it right away without putting it in the mikvah. But on the 13th, Shoino matbil. He has to put it in the mikvah. Shoin is just the lashon of repeat the process in case the original owner put it in the mikvah. You must do so as well. Why? Because I have to assume that the guy that dropped it didn't put it in the mikvah. Why? Because it's the 13th. Why should he put it in the 13th? He's going to push it off to the 14th. When do you go to mikvah? You're not going to go early? It reminds me, a guy walks over to me today, in Shul. He says, my son just turned 12 years old. Can I use your base measures for his bar mitzvah? I'm like, get out of here. It's like, I only found the hall for my son, I think it was 4 or 5 days before his bar mitzvah. It's like, you're asking me about a hole a year in advance? Meshuggah, you're making me crazy. My brain started spinning. I didn't know what to do with them. I said, yes, of course. But I said, you have to become a little bit more normal. I'll become a little, I might be flying to America tomorrow. I don't know. I wouldn't pack it. But you're asking me about, okay, fine. So to here, you see the Gemara is like me. Well, who would put a knife in the mikvah more than one day before? You wait. You procrastinate. You're going to put a knife in the mikvah on the 13th? Pesach is tomorrow, so wait until tomorrow. Koipitz, a cleaver. Look at this. What do you use this for? This, Rabbi Yisai, is to break bones. That's why you use this. You could also, by the way, shecht an animal with this. This is mutter for shchita. It's kosher. But that's not why you found a koipitz. The reason why this is on the floor is because somebody's planning on chopping up an animal big time. Now, what animal could you chop up? You cannot chop up a korban Pesach. We just said, you can't be a korban Pesach. So obviously, this is in preparation for a chagiga. Okay. Now, obviously, the guy didn't put it in the mikveh. Why? Because he cannot use it for his korban chagiga. You can't use it for chagiga. Mani, either Rabbanon, Maishtasak, and the matvu the chazil pesach, korbis nami chazil chagiga. But according to Rabbanon, there is a chagiga going on here. Elalav, the ben Teimahi. Obviously, we're talking about according to ben Teima. And ben Teima holds that you're not allowed to break the bone of a chagiga. You hear the cheshbon here? If it's chachamim, I'm allowed to break the bone of a chagiga. What's the problem? But according to Ben Tema, that says the chagiga is identical to korban Pesach, and just like a korban Pesach, you can't break a bone, so to a chagiga, you can't break a bone. So therefore, if I find this cleaver, it wasn't in the mikvah, because whoever dropped it, like Ben Tema says, cannot use it, is not going to use it anyway. Didn't put it in the mikvah. So Mela, you can't use it. You have to be toivel it. Says Gemara. So you see, it must be going according to Ben Tema, who says you're not allowed to break the bone of a chagiga because it's similar to korban Pesach, and therefore the guy had no use for it. So the guy never put it in the mikvah. And if he had never put it in the mikvah, you have to put it in the mikvah. So the Gemara, no. Who told you? Maybe it goes according to Rabbanan and say you could use it on a korban chagiga. There's no issue to break a bone of korban chagiga. Rabbanan. We're talking about Shabbos. We just said in our Mishnah, on Shabbos, you don't bring a korban chagiga, the 14th one. You don't bring the korban chagiga of the Arba Asar. So Mela, if you find a cleaver, obviously it's not for the chagiga, because I didn't bring a chagiga, it's for the korban. The guy's not going to be told for korban Pesach. You can't break a bone of korban Pesach. So you have to put it in the mikvah. So the Gemara, wait a minute. Again, nice try. To tell me that it's talking about Shabbos doesn't make any sense. Immediately, right away, it says, if the 14th fell out on Shabbos. So what are you telling me? It's talking about Shabbos. It's not talking about Shabbos. A second later, it says a case of Shabbos. Now, if the 14th fell on Shabbos, you know why this guy put the cleaver in the mikvah? Because he needs it for the 15th, right after Shabbos. So he's preparing on the 13th for his meat on the 15th, because the 14th is Shabbos. You can't put a cleaver in the mikvah on Shabbos. You can't be toivel stuff on Shabbos. You can't fix things on Shabbos. And if on the 15th, find it on the 15th, You could also shecht with it right away, because then obviously the guy already was toivel his cleaver, because on the 15th, you're allowed to use, according to everybody, you're allowed to break bones on the 15th. The only thing left over is the chagiga of the 15th. Chagiga of 15th, you're allowed to break bones. Nintzes, koifetz, kshur l'sakin. What if you find the two of them together? Harei k'sakin. So then it's exactly like a knife. And therefore, even on the 14th, on the weekday, you're allowed to use it. Okay, so if I'm telling you another case of Shabbos, obviously the first case is not Shabbos. Ve'ela, but we learned in the Mishnah that there are 3 times we don't bring a korban chagiga on Shabbos: betuma and miut. Meaning, if you need b'meruba. So if you're tamei and you have plenty to eat, meruba, you have plenty to eat of the korban pesach, you don't bring a chagiga. So now the Gemara is going to try using the other 2 excuses. Velo sheba daf Amud Beis. Velo sheba b'meruba. So maybe, perhaps, it's talking about that there's plenty of korban pesach left over, and that's why I'm not bringing chagiga. If I'm not bringing chagiga, I don't need the cleaver, and that's why the guy didn't put the cleaver in the mikvah. Says the Gemara, Meno Yadi. How could a person possibly know that he's going to have plenty of korban pesach way in advance? Maybe people will knock on his door and say, "Hey, could I be part of your group?" People are all last minute. They heard you have a korban pesach, you're going for it. Why should I buy korban pesach? I'm schlepping already my chagiga. I'm schlepping my oilas riyah. I have enough to schlep. I'll just join you. We just turned to Amud Beis, sponsored by Kesher and Nafshi. You can find them at kesherandnafshi.org. Zchus, for the struggling kids in pain of Klall Yisrael. And for the Refuah Shelayma for all Cholei Yisrael, especially from our MDY family. I just heard right before I came to Shir. Shlomo Miller, he's the guy, sometimes you see him on Zoom with a CPAP machine. His son is very, very sick in the hospital. He asked that we should daven for him, another COVID victim. I don't have the name in front of me. Anyways, please consider joining MDY Tehillim. You can probably find his name there eventually. They have a Tehillim group at tehillim.8mindaf.com. Velo, let's try the third thing in the Mishnah. Sheba betuma. Klall Yisrael is in Tumah. Is he in Tumah? Think about it. Is he Tamei? If he's Tamei, what does he need a kosher knife? He doesn't need a tar knife. He's not Tamei. So what is he? Oh, so Klall Yisrael is Tamei. Klall Yisrael is shechting Pesachim left and right. They don't care. Tumah, knives, Tamei, nafta. So for that, I don't need a knife, says Rashi. What does he need a knife? He needs a knife. He needs a cleaver for the 15th. The chagiga of the 15th, he wants to do it b'tahara. He himself is tar. All of Klall Yisrael is Tamei, or 51%. He's from the people that are tar. So I want to do my 15th, my chagiga of the 15th b'tahara. Seif, Minu Yadi. How does he know that most of Klall Yisrael is Tamei? How does he know it's going to happen? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you how. The Nasi. The Gal Hadar just died. If the Gal Hadar dies, the Nasi dies, everybody's mechuyev to go to Levy. You go to Levy, you're probably going to become Tamei. You're going to go in the oil, you're going to touch the mita, whatever it is. Everybody's going to become Tamei. Says the Nasi. When exactly did this happen? It happened on the 13th. So you don't even need a knife. It could go, everybody's tamei, yishach betuma. So he died the Nasi Erev. So how does he know the difference? What's the difference between a knife and the kubitz? Crazy story. The Gal Hadar, the Nasi, rumors have it, he's on his last minutes. So, says the Gemara, very interesting. Mamish like a whole brace of a riddle here. Sakin the chatzveika matila. Listen to this guy. I find the knife. I have to go into the guy that Nebuch lost his brand new Victorinox, whatever it's called, knife. Let's go into his brain for a second. The knife itself, he's going to be matriach and be toivel it. Why? He knows that the Nasi is about to die. I don't know. I'm thinking about that guy. I need to put my head into his head. That guy knows the Nasi is about to die. Is he going to be toivel his knife or not? He knows he's probably going to go to the Levaya. He's probably going to become Tamei. What if the Nasi doesn't die? Okay, let me at least get my knife to become tar in case he doesn't die. Great. So he was toivel the knife. But that's one suffix. The chatzvei gemadila. If it's the trace fake, loy madbila. But if I need to put my head, I have to think how that guy that dropped his knife, he's a big klutz. He forgot his knife, but he's a big lamdan also. So the lamdan is going to put his regular knife, shchita, because maybe the galadar didn't die. But maybe the galadar will die. But also there's another problem. I'm probably not going to schlep along my cleaver because it's very heavy. Because even if the galadar does die, maybe I'll have enough meat on my Korban Pesach. Maybe I'll have enough meat. The only time I need my cleaver is if I need a Korban Chagiga because I don't have enough meat. So that's one problem. Maybe I won't have enough meat. But also, maybe the galadar will die. That's two problems. For two problems, forget it. I'm not going to schlep my cleaver. For one problem, I will schlep my cleaver. I'm going to the mikveh anyways. Okay, fine. Another shayla. Says the Gemara, Tanya Yehuda ben Dortai. I looked this up. This is the only time in Shas that you have this person. I don't know if he was a gadol or not. Some people call him a Tana. Tanya, Yehuda ben Dortai, Peirash. Hu v'Dortai benai. His name wasn't Dortai. He was the son of Dortai. He also had a son that was called Dortai. Okay, so the grandfather is Dortai. The grandson is Dortai. The middle person is Ben Dortai. Ben Dortai decided that all of Chachamim, you have people like that today, all of the Gedolim don't know what they're talking about, but he's a big tzaddik. He doesn't want to be nichshal. The Gedolim said, go ahead and bring a chagiga. But they don't know what they're talking about. So what do? If I'm going to bring my Korban chagiga that doesn't push off Shabbos, I'm going to bring it to the Beis HaMikdash, and everybody is doing the wrong thing, and they're going to I'm going to be machshel people. Well, I'm going to show up with that chagiga and say, what are you doing? Why are you coming with that chagiga? Go back home. You know what the eitz is? Run away. Run away. Where do you run away to? Daraim. Go south. Now it's very interesting. What's south? What's south? South of Israel. Eilat, no? Some people say that he went to Eilat. In other words, outside of Eretz Israel. Eilat is not Israel. Because, the Chazon Ish discusses this, he ran away. But he still has a chiyuv of alila regel. The chiyuv of bringing a chagiga is only if you live within 15 mil. But alila regel, you have to come from everywhere. So he went outside of Eretz Israel. He went all the way south, maybe to Eilat. Fine. Omar, look at these fools. I don't know if he said fools. Look at these people. So Navi comes today. Cannot believe it that Chagiga does push off Shabbos. So sorry, did I say fakert? Maybe I said fakert. Chagiga, he holds Chagiga pushes off Shabbos. I want to do it. And they said no. Who the Gdol Adar? We just had them the other day. Shmai v'Avtalion. They're from the Zugos, Hillel's Rebbe's. Shmai v'Avtalion. The Gerim. How could it be that they didn't darshan? They should tell everybody. Chagiga pushes off Shabbos. I hold Chagiga pushes off Shabbos. Omar Rav, my time at the Ben Durtai. So over here it seems like Rav holds that Ben Durtai was a Talmud Chacham. We have to understand why did he say that it pushes off Shabbos. The Chsiv. V'zovachto Pesach l'Hashem Elokecha tzoinu v'akor. How does the pasuk say that you should take Korban Pesach made from tzayin, sheep and goats, ubakar and cows and bulls? How could it be? I'll tell you, they're the same. You have to bring a Korban Pesach. You have to bring a chagiga. Chagiga comes from the cows. You have to bring the Korban Chagiga. When? On Shabbos. Omer Ravashi, I can't believe Rav is explaining Ben Durtai. We're going to explain the reasoning behind Prushim. People that don't act properly, they run away, they're not part of Klall Yisrael. They do their own thing. So what's Takapshat? He has a great svara here. It says bakar. How could it be that the Torah says you should bring a Korban Pesach made out of bakar, out of larger animals, when we know the Korban Pesach is only from sheep and goats? Hello, Klall. Look at the Rav Nachman Udos. The Omer Rav Nachman or Rabbi Baravua. So what happens if you bring a carbon Pesach? Imagine the balagan that goes on over there by the Beis Hamikdash. Until now we thought there's 1.2 million, whatever it was, 400,000, whatever the number was, 1 million people, more, less. But imagine the amount of animals. We were talking about just Karbonei Pesach. There was close to 500,000 carbon Pesach at least. Right, because every carbon is 10 people per carbon, whatever it was. But then you have to multiply that by at least 2, 3 for the Oilasriya, for the Chagiga, for the 14, the 15, the Shlom. So you're walking there with your little Shepsela, and all of a sudden it just got mixed in, all that, it disappeared. So what do? You bring another one. And then all of a sudden somebody finds it. It has your name tag. So now you're stuck. You have 2 carbon Pesach. What do you do with it? Or Rashi says, you put aside money for your carbon Pesach. A little extra. What do you do with it? You bring it as, we said it a few times, carbon Pesach be'etzem shlamin. Mamish shlamin. Very similar. So you bring it as a shlamin. Shenemar. From here you see, you take your carbon Pesach and you make it a bakar. The same question that Ben Durtai had. You take the leftover of the carbon Pesach and you bring a type of carbon that could be brought from everything. And what is that? Shlamim. Shlamim comes from this as well, from the bakar as well. That's what the Torah is telling you. Bakar, not for the carbon Pesach. The leftover goes for the shlamim. The leftover is bakar, an extra carbon. Why is it that the chagiga of the 15th, of course the 14th, not, but the 15th, how come the second chagiga, the one that you're mechuyev to bring, how come that doesn't push off Shabbos? It's a carbon that you're mechuyev. Havadi carbon tzibur. Ooh, what does this mean? A carbon chagiga is a carbon tzibur? What's a carbon tzibur? Chayra. Carbon tzibur is a communal carbon, no? No. Carbon tzibur, says Rashi, means a carbon that so many people are bringing. Like a carbon Pesach is a carbon tzibur. We never think of it as a communal. There's millions of them. It's the carbon tzibur. Chagiga, so many people bring carbon chagiga, that's a tzibur. Taisa says, the typical pshat of tzibur is something that has a time. Carbon Pesach must come on the 14th, that's a carbon tzibur. Carbon that comes every 15th of Nisan, carbon tzibur. Okay. Vali carbon tziburu.
2 minutes.
Omar. So, how come it doesn't push off? You came late, sorry. Come late, you get a punishment. We do even more. Ooh, wow, 2 minutes, it's almost an hour, yeah. We're almost done. Says the Gemara, so this carbon tzibur, it should push off Shabbos, the 15th, the chagiga of the 15th. Until now we're discussing the chagiga of the 14th. The second type of chagiga, the 15th one. How come it doesn't push off Shabbos? Omar Rabbi Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Safra. Omar Kra, it says by Sukkos, which we also bring a carbon chagiga, right? Not only on Pesach. What is going on? Sukkot is how many days of Shmini Atzeres? 8 days. So why in the world does the Torah say you should bring a carbon chagiga 7 days? Bashana. Oh, very pashut. Shiva Shmona Avu. The pasuk tells us mafurish. You only bring a carbon chagiga 7 days out of the 8. Why? Because one of the 8 days is going to be Shabbos. He asked a kasha, which the Gemara is not so happy with. Wait a minute. You're asking me that sometimes, not sometimes, there's always a Shabbos on Sukkot, so Mamela you only bring a carbon chagiga 7 days out of the 8. Wait a minute. Sometimes there's 2 Shabbosim during Sukkot. And Mamela you only bring a carbon chagiga 6 days. If the first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbos, so you're going to have 2 Shabbosim, and you only bring 6 chagigas. Or Rabbi, Oven Tichla, Levy Milsa. Oven, the one who lost all his children. It's a derogatory lashon. He should say such a silly thing. The reason why the Torah says 7, because it's impossible to have 8. There's always going to be at least 1 Shabbos. You tell me a funny case, once in a blue moon, there's 2 Shabbosim? The Torah doesn't talk about that. Typically, he's talking about a typical case. Typical sukkahs, there are 7 korbanos, 7 chagigas. 6 is a very rare case. Atkan. The Rashal says, how does Abai speak like that to somebody that was in a previous generation? And therefore he says, there's another oven in his generation. Rabbi Say, have a wonderful week. Refuah Shelayma to all the Cholim. And we'll see you Be'ez Hashem in less than, I don't know what the cheshbon anymore, 11 hours or so. Maybe it's 10, who knows. A gute voch, a freudige voch, a mazelige voch. Shalom al Cholei Yisrael. What? I have that picture, I think, already. I printed it.
Okay, I'm walking a picture whatever.
You want to take this? Take this.
No, we can make it.
Oh, tomorrow morning, yeah. What happened? What about your 5-year-old? I didn't hear. Yeah. Where were you? How come you didn't hear it? I thought you heard it. Ah. No, I just told him about the dog. I asked him if he remembers Mando. We had a dog conversation. Yankee, Shalom Aleichem, Yankee. It's good to see you again. Shalom Uvracha. See, I'm getting used to you. Thanks. Oh, look who's on, Rabbi Rubenstein. Finally, Shalom Aleichem. I haven't seen you in ages. Well, I saw you 2 days ago in Shul, but I didn't see you. You got vaccines? What's going on here with the vaccines? Rabbi said pretty soon. 2 vaccines, a week after the 2 vaccines? What?
How do you divvy up a carbon Pesach amongst many people without breaking the bones?
Hillel.
Yes.
You allowed to ask questions and learning now? Okay.
I just don't understand that.
Okay, Hillel, you probably are preparing for Pesach, so I'll answer. It's not halach l'maisa. It's halach l'maisa. What do you mean? Very, 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 very gently. What do you mean? Not with a cleaver. Put it that way.
You can break between sinews, but not bones. Basically, you could cut the spine between 2 bones. Yankee, you have to give a demonstration.
Yankee, Rab Bernard David will give you a demonstration. Rabbi Weissfish. Mati, you're going to work? Every day you run away from us. Motzei Shabbos, you can relax. No, tonight we only have 3 people in MDY. 3 down here, 2 up there. The plan is, Be'ezer Hashem, to make a big comeback. As soon as, yeah. Dr. Factor, and then eventually we're gonna. As soon as I get my second vaccine, we'll all come back together, Be'ezer Hashem. We'll blow it up, and when it becomes legal. Right now we're still at 5 people. Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying, Tzadik? I didn't hear. Jonathan Stern, what's Yahrzeit? No, you're on mute. Welcome, Jonathan, you're on mute. Hold on, where is he? Hold on, let me unmute him. Can you unmute? Oh, here, Jonathan Stern, Shalom Aleichem. How what? What'd you say?
How does one eat the carbon Pesach and not break a bone?
That's what Hillel wanted to know. It's impossible? I don't know. What's the big deal? Is it?
What's the problem? You can rip off the meat. Just rip it up. What's the big deal?
Thank you, guys.
It's happening soon. You better start practicing.
It's going to be chassidish the meal.
Mashiach coming by tomorrow night. You shouldn't book that wedding all these anyway. Just because Mashiach doesn't come, we have to be braced for the disappointment as well. I'm saying it's both way around.
We're disappointed every day. I think we're used to the disappointment. Every day we're disappointed. Wow. Reb David Kantor, Shalom Uvracha, how are you? Yishma, where are you located? Remind me, where are you located?
I'm in Givat Zev. I'm only like half an hour from Beit Shemesh. I'll be coming to the sea. There's going to be a lot of alcohol as I'm coming.
The singing, the Oideshu. Menachem Ateh, you should know, I was running like, I had plenty of time tonight. I was like so excited, I'm going to be here on time. I show up to the Meis Medrash 5 minutes early. All three of them thought that the shiur is starting at 8:30. I call him up, I said, Gary, where are you? He goes, I'm in Gimel. All I can think about is you. I promise you, I was here.